Hello and welcome again to the Culture segment this morning. It's good to have you with us. Today's Fashion and Style Day on France 24, and for that we're joined by our fashion expert Jessica Michault here in the studio. We're talking about the controversial return of fur onto the catwalks today, what styles to stay away from and which furs could make good investment pieces that will last a lifetime or even two. So Jessica, why are we seeing a return of fur to the catwalk? I thought that was still taboo for many designers.
Well, I mean, it really is a huge return of fur this winter season. We're seeing a number of shows, more shows in fact, that had fur on the catwalk than those that didn't. I could count more with them having fur on the catwalk than those that didn't. But the return has been gradual for the last few winter seasons. We've seen returns first on fur on cuffs and collars and maybe the lining of a jacket. And if there were fur coats in the past, it was much more understated. But today furs have really come back big and bold, and they've been brought back into the fold and are being used almost like wool or cashmere by designers, and they really have no qualms about showing furs on the catwalk.
So you say they're big and bold, but could you talk us through specifically what kind of furs we're seeing on the catwalks?
Well, really, we're seeing all kinds of furs. We're seeing, those in-your-face fur coats with giant shoulders that is kind of echoes this 1980s revival that we're seeing in the rest of the winter collections. But we're also seeing bright, popping colors of hot pink and red and blue and orange and some icy blues. But we're also seeing quite an interesting use of fur stoles this season. There's a retro style that we were seeing at places like Lanvin, and then maybe a more modern look at Miu Miu, where they were kind of hanging down one side of a coat. And then, of course, there are always fur trim on cuffs and collars, but this time in a kind of a big way, puffing out a jacket, or really framing a collar of a jacket.
When I look at the pictures that we've just been watching as you were talking there, I'm seeing sort of big furs, kind of big and hefty. I'm guessing that they weigh quite a lot, these furs. I mean, are they really practical? That's my thinking.
Well, I know you think that some of those models, or again, those tiny little models, are going to kind of topple over with those giant furs. But in fact, they're the main reason fashion designers have gone back to fur is the new technologies that the fur industry have come up with recently to make furs lighter and much more malleable. I mean, back in the 1990s, when there was a real backlash against fur, the fur industry really had to go back to the drawing board and come up with new techniques of shaving the fur, of weaving the fur, of cutting the fur to make it light and malleable, and really make it something that would make designers see the fur in a different way, see it as almost like a fabric, something like a cashmere or wool or a cotton.
So it's just another fabric for basically designers these days, fur.
Yeah, actually it is.
It's kind of controversial, isn't it?
It is controversial, but I mean, the fur industry has been quite clever in its designing of fur to be so lightweight, so much so that we're actually seeing a trickle down of summer furs. So we're seeing furs from major designers like Oscar de la Renta and Burberry and Todd Lynn showing their summer furs on their collections in the shows that we just saw in this past September. In fact, fur is so lightweight now that I think we're going to be seeing a lot more summer furs in the future, because those can transition much better than maybe a large winter coat. They can travel easier. They can go to maybe used at more events than a big winter fur coat. So I think we'll be seeing a lot more summer furs.
I'm not really sure if I would wear a fur coat in mid-July, but anyway, that's another issue altogether. If we sort of move on then to, I mean, price or value of the sort of the price that people have to pay for a normal fur coat. I mean, how do people actually know that they're getting value for money?
Well, I mean, the fur industry is quite clever. They've come up with a concept kind of similar to what happened with the diamond industry with having conflict diamonds. They came up with a certificate to prove that diamonds weren't conflict diamonds. The fur industry now has come up with a new label that it's putting in furs called Origins Assured. And if a fur has this label, it means that the fur, and I quote, comes from a country where the government has approved animal welfare regulations and standards have been enforced on the country's fur production. So it's kind of a stamp of quality and quality in production and quality in the fur itself.
But of course, I mean, the good old controversy, it still remains. I'm guessing that a lot of people won't be able to get past the whole barrier that essentially an animal has been killed for a good fur coat.
I know there are a lot of people who maybe like the look of fur and are looking for other options, one of which some people feel comfortable with is maybe buying a vintage fur. That's not actually putting money into the fur industry. The problem there is the vintage furs look vintage. They look old. But a lot of major fur companies now, there are websites that you can go to find them that will actually take an old fur coat, resize it, shave down the fur, or maybe even just use pieces of a fur coat onto other pieces of clothing to kind of update an old fur coat. Another option is to go the fake fur route. That's really gotten quite popular, and it used to look really not very good, a fake fur coat, and now you really almost can't tell the difference sometimes. And a new celebrity designer has come in out with a new line of fur coats. Rachel Zoe has launched a line of fake furs on the QVC shopping channel in the United States recently, and that's had quite a lot of success. So that's another option.
Just very briefly, are you buying fur this winter?
No, I'm not.
All right, still staying on the non-controversial side of clothing.
Absolutely,
Thanks very much, Jessica Michault. I'm looking forward to next week's segment on fashion, what to wear and what not to wear, perhaps. Next, we're going to move on here on culture. The entertainment capital of the world has been hosting some of the best Arab singers. Rida Al Abdallah, Asala and Sheb Khaled, a difficult name that one, were sharing the stage at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. France 24 has been to meet the singers who are superstars in the Middle East and almost unknown in the United States.
For one night only, the world capital of gambling hosted some of the Arab world's finest singers, sharing the stage at the MGM. Outside the arena, the halls quickly turned into a souk, with every fan sporting his colors. Meanwhile, Rida Abdallah opened the evening with songs about the pain he feels for his home country, Iraq. Through his compositions, Rida describes his journey from fleeing the dictatorship of Saddam to the war currently plaguing his country.
يا عراقا كبرياء ماذا بثوبك من دماء. I have my family in Iraq. Every time I swear I speak. When I want to, I think tomorrow I call, my heart same like this. But he should be I call. Because I know he's coming some news, he's broken my heart. Every time, hello, he's a friend, you know this friend, he's die, haram, he's go. Why? He say, you don't know, why? Somebody killed him.
There's just as much emotion in the voice of the Syrian diva Asala. Fans call her the voice of the Arab world. Everyone here knows all her songs by heart, from Mabash Anna to Yamin Allah, and one of her biggest hits, Ya Magnoon, a fusion between flamenco and the voice of an artist whom many compare to another Arab legend, Fairuz. Asala considers it to be important to come to the United States, where she is virtually unknown compared to the Arab world, where she is a superstar.
I come for the Arabs who live here in the United States. When they see their favorite Arab singer, they get the sense that they belong to a community, or even to the singer in a way. That's why I like coming here, despite the difficulties and all the obstacles during this complicated trip.
Khaled has a completely different style. While on stage, the King of Rai performs his biggest hits and does his best to appease tensions between his Algerian compatriots and the Egyptians, both present in the stands.
A singer's job is not to get political. His message is that he lends his voice to a cause, which is love. So as they say, make love, not war.
A message of peace sent out to the people of the world, especially to those in the Arab countries.
Culture from around the world, have a look at our website, france24.com. Just click the culture tag at the top of that webpage. And with that, we're also going to wrap up this morning's edition of the morning edition at France 24. It's been a pleasure to have your company, and join us again tomorrow. See you then.